myself again. But it's the only way you're ever gonna learn. You look back and it's all in the past. I'm dwelling on the thoughts I cannot say to you.
Good evening, welcome to NUFC Matters, and it is Monday night and it's ladies' night, so as always I'm joined by a panel of the ladies to talk about Newcastle United over the last 7 days, and we've got Lily, Holly, Sav and Kendall with us tonight. Sam is still recuperating and Katie's still having a bit of time off. I know everyone keeps asking, where they are, how they are, but don't worry, they will be back at some point. But just nice to have different ladies to come on each week and talk about Newcastle United. So we always look back on the game at the weekend, Lily, and as I said on the 5-minute rant, which I did a little bit earlier with Pete and Chris, do you feel it was a point earned, or do you think it was 2 points dropped?
Again, I did say, unfortunately I was at work so I missed it, but all us ladies did call it on Monday. We all said it'd be a draw, and you're the only one that put a bet on, Steve, so we're all kicking ourselves now because we should have done it. Dom's shown me the highlights. I think I was happy with the draw. I will take a point, but at some points we did look like we could have, in places we should have won it. It's quite shocking, really. But like I said last week, I was happy with the point. We can't keep dropping points, but yeah, it's some, it is what it is. Unfortunately, we just need to start up in the game now. We need to be performing week in, week out. We can't keep dropping points now. We've got to keep going up and not.
Yeah. I think the mindset is when you go 1-0 up and, it's a big game, you're at home, crowd or no crowd, you want to try and see the game out, don't you? And it was disappointing. And I think because there was such a fuss made about Dubravka Darlow pre-match, and then obviously we saw the starting lineup and Dubravka was the only change, he was in for Darlow. It would have to be a goalkeeping error, wouldn't it? That, ultimately cost us the 3 points.
Yeah, I mean, what is it to say? Sod's Law.
Yeah.
It really was well and truly, from what I could see in the highlights, it really was. I mean, we're lucky, really, that he didn't score an own goal, because I saw that on when he knocked it away. If he'd have knocked it the other way, then that really would have been a massive error and would have been calling him, like we have been for Darlow the last few weeks. So it was a point. I'm happy with a point. I'll take that. We just got to keep going.
Yeah, okay. Holly, of course, you joined the lads on Matchday Live, so you watched it on your birthday. So I'm sure we never get sick of saying this. I think I milked my birthday for about 4 days. So happy birthday again. And I hope the football didn't spoil it too much. But what was your take on the game at the weekend?
For the game, I said that I would have been happy with the point, and I did predict the 1-1. I just wanted anything but a defeat. So in that respect, I was okay about it. But I think we could have won that game. There was no reason why we couldn't have. I think yet again it was the mentality that kind of stopped us. But once Almiron and St Maximin got that injury, then I kind of knew in the back of my mind that was kind of game over and we wouldn't go on to win it, because they were the two best players on the night for me. I thought Almiron was outstanding until he went off. But hopefully we can just get 3 points against West Brom and keep picking up the points to stay up. So there was some positives in it, but I am still worried because they didn't show enough for me to convince us that we'll stay up. Okay,
Sav, your take on the weekend's game?
Yeah, I found it really disappointing because I actually think, especially in the earlier parts of the game, we were by far better. We could have banged in quite a few goals. I think if we'd have had Callum Wilson there, we'd have had 3, maybe even 4. We're looking really positively set up. It's a shame that we started getting the injuries with Miggy and then ASM. Then we sort of all just decided to sit back and, part the bus a bit, which I don't blame. That's probably the best idea, to be fair. But yeah, it was 2 points dropped in my opinion, but it is what it is. I felt sorry for Dubravka being judged like he was on that first goal, because he hasn't played all season and that was his first match back, and I don't think you can judge on that. I actually think that last save he made was astounding, and that kept us with the point, so I didn't think he did too badly at all.
No, me neither. Kendall, just a quick summary of the game from you as well, really. How did you see it?
Yeah, I think everyone would have took a point before the game. As we said, we all predicted it. I just guess the first half made you hope again that you were going to get the 3 points, and then at the end of the game you take a point before the game, but at the end you think, oh god, that's actually 2 points dropped. Like the way that we played in the first half, I wish we could. The intensity that we played for the first 30 minutes, if I can speak, that I wish we could play like that for longer, like 60, 70 minutes, because then I think we would grind out results a lot more if we played with that intensity. And it is just a massive shame about Dubravka's, not doing well enough, if you will, for their goal. But I feel like as well, Lewis was to blame for allowing the cross to go in. Hayden was to blame for not defending properly, like with Lascelles. So, yeah, I think it was just, it was a mixed bag. There were some positives again. I thought Willock was really decent again. He's a midfielder that we have looked for a while, where they can, drive balls forward into the box, because none of the other midfielders that we have really do that a lot. And Kraft and Lewis were both poor for me again. I just think it's probably time now for Dummett to come back in, especially against, West Brom, who score goals, even though where they are, they do tend to score goals. So I think it's probably time for Dummett to come back in. But we don't really have an option about Kraft, because he's the only right back that we've got fit at the moment. So yeah, it was just a very strange thing. I feel like if we had Wilson, we probably would have won that game, because we had the chances there. Joe Linton I thought had an okay game. I've caused absolute carnage on Twitter over the weekend, saying that I thought he had an okay game, and people were acting like I called him Pele, which I didn't. I said he was okay. Like, I didn't even say like anything remotely of the sort. I just said he was okay. It was probably one of the better games I've seen him play, really. But yeah, we'll see against West Brom. I'm not looking forward to it. I cannot believe we're now... Well, I can believe it, but I didn't want to believe that we're going to be at a point in the season where West Brom is one of the biggest games that we've got to play. And it's just, like, unfortunate that we're back at the, the same old position that we're in pretty much every season now.
We are. Kendall, I just want to talk to you a little bit, because Lee didn't see the game at the weekend, but that incident on the touchline, between Bruce and Graham Jones, I didn't make much of it. It got blown up on social media, but I personally didn't feel there was anything in that. I just felt it was a conversation that was happening between two coaches, and it was an off the cuff comment. I certainly don't think he was aiming at a Graham Jones, what he said.
Yeah, I saw the video, and I think context is so massively important in those situations, because you don't know what they've been talking about prior. You only see a little 5 minute span. We're not even 5 minute span of the cameras that are on you at that point, and it was just unfortunate that it caught that, like, the crux end of the I've said crux, like Steve Bruce, the crux, daffodils at the crux, like the end of the conversation, because then people were like, oh, Graham Jones went and sat back down because he was like careful, but I don't know, like, we don't know the context around the situation. I highly doubt that Steve Bruce was telling him to, F off or whatever, because why would he do that? Like, there's just no point in doing that. Like, it's stupid. And even if he did, I highly doubt he meant it maliciously. Like, do you know what I mean? It's just, everything gets blown up on social media. I don't think there was really anything in it. But as I say, none of us will probably really know the truth.
No, we won't. Leila, you'll have seen a repeat of it, I presume. Steve Bruce on the sidelines with Graham Jones. And I think, it looked as if he was talking about something, and Bruce then obviously mouthed something to him, which, it was a swear word, but it certainly wasn't aimed at him. They weren't pointing fingers in each other's faces and having a row. It was just, industrial language on the touchline, which goes on every game.
I'll admit I did see it, because obviously, like Kendall just said, it was all over Twitter and everything. And I did say to Dominic, well, hang on a minute, Dominic said, look, I think the camera's just panned around at the wrong time, same as Kendall said. It's been took out of context, but what we all do on Twitter is we blow it up 10 times more than what it actually is. And it, like you said, it could have just been an ingest thing. We're just going, go away. And I think it's been blown well out of proportion, to be fair. And, Jones could have been going to sit down anyway. It's just the timing of him sitting down with what was being said. But we all do, don't we? We all do it. We're all like, oh, what's he just said to it? Oh, did you see? And I think it's been took out of context and blown well out of proportion. I really do. So, like I said, I didn't see the match, so I've seen it from the flip side, where I'm trying to piece the bits together. No, I think it was took out of context, definitely.
Yeah, Holly, do you agree?
Yeah, I think the same. I think that Twitter just always blows everything out of proportion, like just being dramatic about stuff. But I think Bruce does need to try and be more careful about what he's saying when there's cameras around and stuff like that, because he is kind of treading on eggshells. Like the slightest thing that he does, and it'll get picked up on and blown up. So he needs to be more aware of what's happening.
Yeah, good point here by Barry. He says there was an incident supposedly between Hodgson and Loftus-Cheek at the Fulham game. Everyone was saying it was dodgy. It turned out Hodgson was just asking how his family were. He says the press are desperate. So it just shows yourself, things can be taken out of context. I mean, the week before it was the photograph of Steve Bruce walking down the touchline, or the footage of Steve Bruce walking down the touchline having a laugh with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, which went viral. Everyone was saying it was bang out of order, including me. I did think, you should have waited until he got in the dressing room, but that just shows you the snowball effect, doesn't it, of social media these days?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I mean, I often say it to my friends when I'm talking to them. I'm like, oh, F off, when they've said something that I'm, just in general conversation. So I didn't really take much from it. And, I think what it is that we just love a drama. And if we can escalate something and have a bit of a field trip over it, we love it. And I think that's all it's down to. There was nothing in it. As much as I'd have loved the big fisticuffs on the sideline and, them having a big fight, it would have been great entertainment. That wasn't what was happening. They were just talking, I think. And I think it was just a flippant comment that he said that a lot of people do say. I mean, people don't necessarily say it in the terms that it's always meant. So it is what it is, I think.
Yeah, it is what it is. Obviously, the big game, of course, is coming up next week. And the problem we've got from the weekend's game, not so much the result, but the injuries, Kendall, that we've suffered. ASM, obviously, it looks as if he'll probably miss next week. But then on top of that, we've got Miggy, who, let's hope it's not true, but looks as if he could be out for at least a couple of weeks, maybe longer. It's just, the problems are mounting up, aren't they?
Yeah, look, injuries have followed us all season, and it's just so happened now that Miggy avoided injury obviously at the beginning of the season because Steve Bruce wasn't playing him. And then, it's come to a point where we're desperate for these wins. Games are coming thick and fast because of all of the, the logged up games that were missed at the beginning of the season, the games that were postponed due to COVID and things like that. So games are coming thick and fast, and at this point we literally cannot afford to have injuries, but you can't stop it from happening because fitness is clearly not great because pre-season wasn't very lengthy and there was barely any at all. As I say, the fixtures are so intense and close together at the moment, and you just can't avoid it, and unfortunately it's just hitting all the major players that we need, and that is all down to squad depth. That is down to not putting enough investment into the squad to have enough depth within your squad to, get the results that you need at this point. So, and we know who that's down to, you know what I mean? So it's really unfortunate. I'm absolutely desperately hoping that Miggy is not out for any longer than 2 games. One, if possible, but any longer than 2 games, we are really, really struggling because obviously we've got West Brom next and Aston Villa, and we need to be picking points up in these games desperately right now because Fulham are literally on our tails so closely. We're on the same point as Brighton now, so we really are in the thick of it now. And I just sincerely hope that if Miggy's out for long, obviously ASM, fair enough, hopefully his isn't bad either, but I'm just hoping that if Miggy's out, because he's the hardest worker on the pitch every single week, and that's what we need right now, that Callum Wilson's back before it sooner rather than later. It's just a nightmare, and unfortunately there's nothing we can really stop it happening. So yeah, it's a shame, but there's nothing we can do. We just gotta laugh because what can we do? You know what I mean? It's just other teams are struggling. Leicester's struggling, Liverpool's struggling with injuries. So I think we've got the 4th most injuries in the league, or we've had the 4th most absences in the league. And when you're in a relegation battle, that is not something that you really, really want. So yeah, but yeah, I've just got to move on and hope that the injuries aren't as serious as they look.
Yeah, it's a big blow, Lee, losing those players, as we have done. Callum Wilson, the bright sign on the horizon was that he was back in, light training last week. So you're hoping that the recovery isn't going to be too much longer for him. But yeah, it's a blow with this big game coming up at the weekend to lose 2 key players.
Thing is, what we're going to end up doing is, are we going to end up rushing Wilson back too quickly? Because same as Kendall says, everything's been concertina together now. So we're constantly playing catch up. And they've not had the rest or what they would normally have done. And same as Kendall said, Miggy is amazing on that, but you can't stop him. He's just here, there and everywhere. Obviously, fatigue's now playing a part. That's why he's got injured. If we rush Wilson back, is it a case of he's going to end up with an even worse injury? Is it a case of we need him to be 100% because we can't risk it being even worse as a knock-on effect? I did see, again, the pictures of Miggy on the pitch. And, yeah, you could see how much that was hurting, bless him. And was it somebody said, Bruce just said to him, "Oh, walk it off, you'll be fine, son." And I just think, where's your compassion as a manager? You're playing them all hard. We're all playing catch up, and he's genuinely injured. No magic sponge is going to help him today, mate. You've got to let him rest. You've got to let him recover. And as for ASM, we can't be doing with him being injured this late in the season because he is one of our best players, and it is. And all teams are struggling, like Kendall said. It's. The season was always going to be a harder season because of the COVID knock-on effect, because of how we finished the season previous, and everybody's getting injuries now. It's just getting hard and tricky, and if any team's got any players left at the end of the season, it'll be a miracle the way it's looking at the minute, because it's just hard for them at the minute. They're just not getting the respite that they need to be getting in between fixtures, and it's really hard for them. So hopefully Miggy's not going to be as bad as what we all think, and he'll be back. Maybe 2-3 weeks would be good. Sooner would be better, but yeah, they need to rest them properly. No pushing them back.
Yeah. A lot of people in the chat, Holly, are saying, everyone's got injuries. Liverpool have got injuries, and it is part of the game, but it doesn't make it any easier, does it?
Not at all. Obviously, all of the teams have injuries because of how many games there's been in a short period of time. But the difference is that we're one of the teams battling relegation, so it's worse for us. If you're in the top half of the table and you're doing okay, then it's not something that is a massive worry. But it's just the fact that I think I'm hoping Almiron and St Maximin come back quickly, but if they've got long-term injuries, I don't want to go over the top or anything, but I think that'll be the final nail in the coffin for us. I think that'll just send us down. I'm being so negative lately and I hate it because I don't want to be negative, but there's just nothing to be positive about. I just don't see any light at the end of the tunnel. For the first time supporting Newcastle, I just think we're destined to go down. Just everything about it's just nothing's kind of going our way. And Fulham now, for me, definitely look like they've got enough in them to stay up. You can see how much they want it, and their players, for me, look like they want to stay up 10 times more than we do, which is so hard to watch because Fulham, if they go down, it's not that bad because obviously they're a yo-yo club. They're constantly flicking between leagues, whereas us, if we go down, it'll be just horrendous for us. We'll be in an absolute mess. It'll be 10 times worse than it is now, which is hard to even imagine. And I pray that we don't get any more injuries because it really will send us down.
Yeah, do you agree with that, Sav?
Yeah, it's worrying, but as you said, I think a lot of teams are struggling with injuries at the moment, and I sort of think now, why don't we give some of the youngsters a go? Because we're at the bare bones on our squad with injuries. We could all sit here and say, "Oh God, this is awful. We're going to go down," or we could be proactive about it. I noticed today, and I don't know if he's injured, but Elliot Anderson didn't appear for the under-23s even on the bench, and I couldn't find anything on it as whether he was injured or not, or whether there's another reason whether he's going to be thrown in next weekend. So yeah, I just think although Steve Bruce is in charge, so we should be proactive and give some of these youngsters a chance. Give them a bit of game time. We don't know if that's what we need. Where's Matty Longstaff gone? He's another one that's missing. I think we just need to throw a band-aid over it and just crack on, because we can sit and say, "Oh, it's awful that they're out," but they're out now and we've got to get on without them. That makes me sound so hard. Sorry, I'm just saying. You're gone. No, it's a good. Someone else.
It's a good point. I mean, Anderson. Anderson, Sab, was quoted as saying, it was a cryptic tweet, but I think we all got the point. If you're, if you're good enough, you're old enough. Was the point he was trying to get across. And I think he's right. Give him an opportunity. I think there seems to be a misconception among some supporters that he's some kind of super striker. He's not. He's an attacking midfield player. So is he going to be able to solve the goal problem that we've got in that first team? I'm not sure. I think what really upsets me more, Sav, is watching the Championship each week and seeing two players who we had at the club, and this isn't Bruce's fault, he wasn't at the club, but we let Ivan Toney go, who is banging the goals in, and of course we don't need to look much further along at Blackburn and see Armstrong banging goals in. I've got to be honest, when I watched Armstrong I didn't think he was good enough, but Ivan Toney just looks a talent, doesn't he? And I'll be very surprised if he stays there much longer. He might come up with them and get promoted into the Premier League, but I can see him getting a big money move at some point.
Yeah, it's just gutting because you're seeing them banging in the goals in the Championship, and that's the one thing that we can't do at the moment. We can't score a goal, and that's completely what we're missing. And as I say, it's really gutting, and something's got to change. I don't really know where, but I think something's got to change, or we're going to be struggling, and we are going to go down. And I don't think we're going to bounce straight back up this time with the squad and the players that we've got.
No, I think you're right. We're not down yet though, so let's try and be positive. Kendall, the youngsters, first of all, I mean, would you give youth a chance, like Sav says?
Look, at the end of the day, we've got nothing to lose right now. Like, we just haven't. Young players will want to prove their worth. They will want to work hard to see if they can make it into the first team eventually. They'll want to prove what they're about, and I think right now that mentality is what we probably need in a relegation battle. Despite Bruce telling everyone that we're not in one, but we definitely are. And that's the mentality you need. You need hard workers, you need grafters, you need people who actually want to play and want to get a result. So I don't see the harm in putting the youngsters in. I don't want to just chuck them in. I want players like Elliot Anderson, who have had a little bit of experience at that level, have played at the top level, in whatever category they're in currently. I mean, look, I'm not even being funny, but there's like players like Atsu and stuff who are in our squad now, in the 25-man squad. Just put him on. He's had experience at that level before. He's been in a relegation battle with us before, so I don't really see why he maybe couldn't come in, even though people don't rate him and think he's rubbish. I'm not by any means saying that he's good, but at this point, the injuries that we have are all sustained by first 11 players. So it's like we just haven't got any other choice. We're just going to have to grab something from somewhere. And unfortunately, maybe the players aren't, ready, but we've got to try and make them ready. There's no reason now why, players like Matty Longstaff and stuff can't come into the squad, because they're good enough. They've played at that level. I mean, Matty Longstaff scored against Premier League opposition, so there's absolutely no reason why they shouldn't be there now at this point. I mean, I don't even know how long it is till Fernandez comes back, players like that. It's just like we don't get much communication from the club. I mean, we never have done. Do you know what I mean? So, I just really don't see if there's anything to lose right now.
Pointless having a squad if it's not going to be used, says Lee Major,
exactly.
which I would agree with. Lee, there was a bit of hanging his players out to dry at the weekend from Steve Bruce, which I found again rather bizarre behaviour. I think the one that annoyed me the most, and I think everybody who watches the show knows that I'm a Matt Ritchie fan, so clearly I'm not happy that he's not getting a game and not getting a look in. But to blame Matt Ritchie for not passing instructions on when the TV cameras clearly showed Matt Ritchie passing the instructions on when he came on the pitch, I found was bizarre. But also, saying that Lewis, needed to improve, having a pop at Dubravka for conceding a goal. I know again that the media asked the questions, but take for example, Jonathan Woodgate. I was speaking to somebody on my walk today, and he watched the press conference with Jonathan Woodgate after the game, and there was a blatant foul committed by one of his players, and he didn't hang his player out to dry. He just said he didn't see it. Yet Steve Bruce, he pulled a scroll out of his pocket and he was listing everything that everybody done wrong. And again, that's not what you want to be doing. When you're sitting above the relegation positions, is it slamming your players?
It's awful. I mean, we keep saying he's lost the back room. Well, there's a prime example of how and why. You know, he starts a press conference before a game praising the other team before we've even played, and then he slates his own players afterwards. How is that encouraging them to want to play? And like you said, you saw Richie giving the instructions, so where does he get off saying stuff like that? And then he wonders why he's got such a backlash. Well, this is why. You're just not doing yourself any favours. Was it somebody said he clearly doesn't have help when it comes to his talking to the reporters and stuff? It's not like it used to be. The smallest things are picked up on, and then it snowballs and escalates, as we all know. And it's just shocking. It really is shocking. He needs to stop and take a look at himself and think, should I have said it like that? Or is there a better way you could phrase it? Because right now he just kind of, it's like he just opens his mouth and just lets anything come out. He doesn't stop and think. And it's no wonder the players are feeling the way they're feeling. If that's how he, you know, he doesn't big them up before a game and then he throws them under the bus at the end of the game. So what, you know, if I was at work and my manager did that to me, I'd be like, well, why am I working for you then, mate? If that's what you think of me, why am I bothering to work my butt off if that's what you really think? And that's why the team is being the way they're being, because what's the point? He clearly doesn't have any respect for his players, and it's shocking. Nobody should speak about anybody like that. It's awful. It really is awful. And like you said, Richie did pass on the instructions, so where's he got that from? Doesn't make any sense. I think he's lost it. He's well and truly losing it.
I think he just says the first. I think he says the first thing that comes into his head. I think that's it, Holly, isn't it? He doesn't put his brain in gear, and just, you know, first thing that comes into his head, he says it. And sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad.
Yeah, well, he's definitely not very professional. Like, I don't even know how he's got this far into the job, like how many jobs he's had and everything, and yet he still can't control the media and have a basic press conference. It's just embarrassing. He constantly embarrasses himself every week. He doesn't have respect for anyone, and it's like the saying goes, a bad workman always blames his tools, and that's exactly what he's doing. It's not the player's fault what happened. In touching on the Dubravka thing, because I know he got a lot of criticism for that equalising goal, but I just thought that was too harsh on him. Like, yes, you could argue it was a mistake, but the defence definitely should have done better. He did get a glove on it and he tried his best to save it, and unfortunately it went in. I think if Darlow was playing, he would have made a mistake as well. And if it wasn't for Dubravka, we could have easily lost that game. So I think people were being way too harsh on him. And Matt Ritchie, he's hardly been in the squad, and he didn't pass the instructions on, so I don't know why he would lie about that and make it up. And then even Lascelles didn't know what was going on. He said he was going to speak about it after, and it's just wrong to criticise his players. I think he constantly disrespects them, and how can you expect the players to want to play for you and to put up with this relegation fight if you're just going to embarrass them in front of the media? It's not on.
Yeah, I'd agree. Sav, I mean, Lily described it, as did Keith in the chat, as throwing his players under the bus. Not a really good, you know, idea when you're trying to keep morale up in a relegation battle.
No, definitely not. I didn't really understand why he'd come on and start naming players personally. I don't think he likes Matt Ritchie at all. I don't know why, because he hasn't given him a chance recently. And in the first chance he's given him, he's come out in the press conference and moaned about him. And then how can you expect to get 100% out of your players if you're back-mouthing about them in press conferences? And I don't know who's trained him with the media, but it was like Friday he snapped at the media as well, didn't he? And he made himself look so arrogant. And I don't know if there's anyone in his ear telling him, actually, that looks really bad, because he seems to have no control over it. It's a shame with Steve Bruce, because he looks unwell now. He looks really stressed, and I think that's why he's snapping. I think the job is too much for him, but he's not going to walk, so what can you do?
No, he's definitely not going to walk. What did you make of the comments, Kendall, from Steve Bruce at the weekend?
Yeah, I was literally just about to actually bring up the whole Shelby thing. Shelby telling everyone he's a great man manager, and I thought, right, okay, then absolute irony of that, because clearly he's not a good man manager if you're going to go and do that in your press conference. Like, one thing you never ever do is throw your players under a bus, no matter where you are in the league, and definitely not when you're in a relegation fight. Throw your players under the bus that literally need a kick up the backside right now. You don't do that. Like, that's absolutely ridiculous. But obviously, as all the girls have mentioned, in the media, is the way he acts in press conferences is atrocious. He consistently cuts the interviewer off whenever they're asking him a question. He never lets the interviewer finish their question or, you know, their point that they're trying to make. He always cuts them off. He comes across arrogant. He comes across rude and aggressive every single time you see him. And I just think if the job's really making you that angry and that upset, and journalists are making you that angry and upset, why are you there? Like, why would you want to go through that? Why would you choose to put yourself through that? Like, no one's forcing you to do things like that. Like, just act. You don't need to act so rude. And, like, especially when, you know, you're already, the fans have already not warming to you because of the way you behave towards them. So why are you making it worse? I've said on the show several times that he always just says things to fit his narrative. Every single time, he'll always just say things to fit the narrative that's going at the time. Like the whole, you know, I can't play Alan and Ryan at the same time, even though he could. And then he said a couple of weeks later, oh, you know, Alan and Ryan together is the answer. And then he says, if I had a squad full of Miggies, my life would be easier. Yet dropped him at the beginning of the season. Like, he just, whatever is happening at the time, that's just what he goes with. He just says, you know, and he's always the victim. He never, ever takes responsibility. If I would genuinely appreciate him way more, well, not appreciate, but respect him a lot more if he came out and just said it how it was. You know, look, my tactics were wrong today. I didn't make the right substitutions. I didn't set up correctly. Like, even if he just said simple things like that, I would respect him a lot more for being honest. Yeah, he comes out and tries to blame a player who hasn't played a league game, like, for ages properly, hasn't played a full league game or started a full league game for absolutely months, blames him for not giving instructions. It's not up to him to give instructions, mate. It's up to you. You are the manager. Like, you literally are the one who is meant to give the instructions, meant to tell everybody where you are. That's what it's called. You're managing a team. You're not just sitting there on the sidelines, even though that's what you do, because you're just a passenger in a game. Like, I just don't understand how you can actually be so rude. And for Lascelles as well, personally for me, a few years ago when he wanted the captain's armband, he came out and spoke out against the club, and now he can't even do that. He can't even, you know, back up his own players or anything like that. It's just, it all just looks very bad, and it doesn't bode well at all for the situation that we're currently in right now. I mean, look, it doesn't surprise me about Shelby because, in my opinion, he's probably one of the only players who have improved under Bruce, because he's had that run out. It was no, you know, secret that Shelby and Rafa didn't get on. Rafa wasn't a fan of Shelby. I mean, I think we can probably all see why at this point. But yeah, I mean, it's no surprise that he backs him up. But it's just, we need that mentality now that Lascelles had 4 years ago when he wanted the armband. And now I just think he's just not even showing his worth at the minute. So we'll see. It just looks, we all sound so depressing, but it's like, it is. It's like,
interesting that. It is interesting. We are feeling like that. It's interesting you touched on Lascelles. Spenny sent this. Now, I would have said that I'm not Lascelles' biggest fan. Now, Spenny did send this in the chat. Let me get this up before I come to Tom's point. Here's some stats from the weekend. Look at this. Minutes played 90, passes completed 39, recoveries 4, clearances 8, duels 1, 4, goals scored 1. Probably one of his better games. Yeah, I can see exactly where you're coming from. You know, with regards to Lascelles. I'm not sure who Spenny got that from. The logo is in the bottom corner there. You'll be able to see it, so that they're being credited. But yeah, I would agree with you. Lascelles isn't. I made the point with Mick Lowe's yesterday. I think he's struggling with a captaincy, Kendall, and I don't think. Yeah. I think when he hasn't got Richie on the pitch, I think, you know, Richie is a captain without the captain's armband, and I think the responsibility is getting to him a little bit, you know.
Yeah, I agree as well. And, you know, I thought maybe he's played with Carl Darlow for a good amount of years now, obviously Nottingham Forest and at Newcastle, and I thought maybe that dynamic between them would work because they know each other really well. They've got a really good relationship, so I thought that would work. But Darlow doesn't offer, as we've said it several times in the show, the command and presence and the instruction that Dubravka does. So I think he's probably coupled with that, not having the help around him in terms of leadership, not having support from your manager who doesn't give instructions, doesn't give any support on the side of the pitch, you know, leaves it up to everybody else. He is struggling, and I can see probably why he is. Because as I say, he's just getting no support. Richie's not there. Darlow's not offering any support when he was in goal prior. Bruce isn't offering any support. So, you know, in this sort of situation that we're in now, where it is make or break, I can see why he's struggling, but this is the time when the pressure, you've got to let the pressure build you up instead of it knocking you down, because this is where you need to build your team up. You need to tell them what, what to do. You need to get the spirits up so that they work hard, because if your captain's not performing, if your captain's not there for support, who are you going to turn to? There's nobody, because you can't go to the manager because he doesn't even know what he's doing himself. So, like, I do understand why he's struggling, and I can see why, but right now is not the time you need to struggle. You need to, take the pressure on, wear it well, wear it with your head tall, instead of letting it beat down. God, I can't speak tonight. I've got something wrong with this. Letting you beat you down, because we really, really need him to step up and be that, the guy that he was when he wanted the captain's armband 4 years ago. But there again, I can probably see why he acted like that, because that's what he wanted. He wanted the captain's armband, and now it's just he's got it and he's not even utilising it well.
Yep, fair enough. It's because you're ranting. That's why, Kendall. You're ranting. You're on a rant today. Big shout out to Spider VPN, our sponsors of the StreamYard application this month. Big thanks to the guys who are staying on for next month as well. And they, along with qtechshop.co.uk, the makers of pool tables and snooker tables in Wallsend, Newcastle, who have supported us from the very beginning, as have Jab Signature, John, who knocks up all of our flyers for each show. Please subscribe to the channel. Please like the channel and the video, and please give it a share as well. We're over 1,000 new subscribers this month, so thanks very much for that. If you do miss the shows, you can listen to us on iTunes and Spotify. Again, it's free to listen to, so download the podcasts on there and catch up with the shows that have been on. Tom Braken is a little bit exclusive. He's got a friend who is in the under 23s, he said, who reckons that we might see Anderson in the squad against West Brom. So we'll wait and see on that, Tom. Thanks for giving us that advice. Darren Curry says Peter Crouch is saying, like many other pundits, there is a witch hunt amongst the fans against Bruce. Yeah, we're back to that again. We've had Richard Keys and his hairy hands, Lily, making an appearance again, upsetting the fans on Twitter.
Oh, it's crazy. Absolutely crazy. It's, you know what it is? It isn't a witch hunt, and it isn't, it's like, we've said before, we've all got passion and we've all got pride. And when you've got a manager that just doesn't, even though he says he's a fan and he wants the job, but then he's not showing the passion and the pride, you are going to get annoyed and you are going to get angry. But Richard Keys was always going to rear his head sooner or later. It's like he thinks to himself, well, they've not booked me for a while and I'm a bit bored. I've got nothing else to do. I know. I'll, poke the sleeping bear and see how long it takes them to get back at me. And but then for the other pundits to be joining on the bandwagon now as well, it's like all fans have issues regardless of who the clubs are, but why is it always us that seem to get it left, right and centre off the other pundits? Why is it always us? If anything, it's a witch hunt against Newcastle fans, because all the pundits seem to have a problem with us, and it's pathetic. It really is. It annoys me, but I hadn't seen Richard Keys' comments, to be fair, but I tend to, if I see him, I just kind of, I'm not interested, go away, scroll up, get off your phone. I don't want to know what you're bawling about now, because you bore me. I
tell you what, if everybody could do that, the world would be a better place, but unfortunately we can't. Holly, I mean, the media stuff will always be the same, and poking the bears the way that Lily described it, but it's fishing, isn't it? I mean, I do a bit of that. And I've got to be honest, if I'm bored, I'll stick something out. You do stick something on, and it passes the time. If usually in normal times without COVID, you're sitting on a train or something. I've entertained myself on a 3-hour journey by putting something out and just replying to the comments. It is easy, but Richard Keys does that because he wants you to go and visit his potential platforms, and he gets a bit of a buzz out of it as well, I suppose.
Of course, that's what it is. Like, you can't tell me all of these pundits just hate Newcastle. I think it's because generally the Newcastle fan base seem to kind of bite more than other fan bases, which I think is just because we're so passionate and we don't want injustices said about our club and our fan base. But in terms of Richard Keys, I don't know what he said. I muted everything to do with Richard Keys about a year ago because he just used to annoy us and I just didn't want to see it anymore. Like, honestly, I try not to listen to anyone apart from people that give a fair assessment, because like you say, all they're doing is trying to get clicks and build their profile. I don't believe it's anything personal against Newcastle or the fan base. I just think they're just doing it as an easy bite, like you said.
Yeah, definitely. Sav, I mean, social media, you know, we've had our ups and downs with it. But you and I personally over the last month. I saw Kendall getting a bit of stick over the weekend. But, you know, when it's people in these, you know, these professional positions, they are just doing it for clickbait, aren't they, really?
Yeah, it's awful. I mean, I'm the same. I've had Richard Keys muted for ages. I haven't got the headspace and the time for any of his crap. But yeah, it's just baiting, and he wants to get likes. He wants to make the fan base look bad. There's a few that do it, and it's bad, really. It's not professional, and it's shocking that they can actually get away with it. To be honest, I don't know how they get around that. I think just because they put it in a way that doesn't sound offensive, but it is offensive, and then people will bite to it, and then they'll go, "Oh well, look, you know, this is what they're like," and our point is being proved right. And then, you know, then you've got Steve Bruce coming out saying, "Oh, well, I've had death threats from him as well," which makes us look even worse. So it's really difficult. I've just got to a point now where I just block it all because I don't want to see it, because I don't want to be one of those people that finally snaps and then bites to it, because that's just what they want. Like you say, it's just clickbait.
Yeah, we'll get all the exclusives on this program. Of course, this isn't our opinion. This is Vincenzo's. But he says, my friend plays for the under-21s, and he told me two very funny things happened last week. One, he walked in on Steve Bruce in the loo. Two, Bruce was wiping his bum standing up. Wonderful, that. Of course, that isn't our story. It's Vincenzo's story, and what a great story, Vincenzo. Thanks for sharing that with us. Wonderful. A good job we couldn't smell it, put it that way. Kendall, we'll get all the exclusive. It's good to laugh, isn't it? At least anyway.
Yeah. Honestly, we need that. We need more. If that's an exclusive, I want more. Makes us not think about the actual depressing state the club's in at the moment.
Well, maybe Vincenzo will log in every week and give us a toilet story.
Wow.
That would be great.
Wow. Okay.
Dad joke of the week. I always manage to get one in when I'm on with the ladies. The Dubravka Darlow thing, that was really like dominating pre-match, and of course when the team came out, Kendall, it was there. You know, Dubravka was in. You know, we saw the ups and downs of being a goalkeeper. We saw a goal which he should have really stopped from going in, but we saw a wonderful save which we know Dubravka can do, you know, time and time again, and he's won as many points like that. So proved to be the right decision, I think. Anyway.
Yeah, 100%, and I think the extras that Dubravka offer is why we want him in, because as I've said, we've all said a million times, he's command and presence. It's like the buzz phrase on this show. He offers way more command and presence in the box. He offers more instruction. You can tell, like you could see him shouting from his line so many times at the weekend, which is something I don't ever see Darlow doing. Well, not very often anyway. And you know, a partnership was built last season between Dubravka and the defence, whether, you know, no matter who was playing. And when that isn't there, and Darlow stepped up, don't get me wrong, but I'm not, you know, bullying him by any means, because he has stepped up. Just the last couple of games, he's looked shaky. And when there isn't a solid defensive partnership there that we had last season, because obviously Fernandez played pretty much every game of every minute of every game last season, you do need someone to step up and help organise the defence when there isn't a solid partnership there. So that's why I prefer Dubravka. I have more faith in him, if that makes sense, in terms of shot stopping. And unfortunately, Carl Darlow missed, you know, 2 goals against at the near post last week. So it was time for Dubravka to come back in. I know there was rumours swirling around Twitter that Steve Bruce didn't directly tell Darlow he was going to be dropped. He left it to, I can't actually remember who it was, possibly the goalkeeping coach, to tell him that he was dropped for the game. Which again, man management. Shelby's coming out saying, oh, his man management's so bloody great. All I see is wrong things. All I see is bad things that he does. So I just, honestly, well, as someone mentioned earlier, it's because Shelby's obviously, you know, gained under Steve Bruce, whereas the other players probably haven't. So, yeah, Dubravka's fine. It was his first game back. I don't think we can be annoyed about it too much. Just let him, you know, slot back into the team. And he's already had a run out in the cup, possibly like 1 game. So, yeah, I just think it's a matter of time before he gets back to his best again.
Yeah, okay. It's an interesting point, Lily, that you know, some of the people in the chat have made, and Kendall's have said there, you know, maybe Lascelles plays a lot better with Dubravka behind him, you know what I mean, because he is a command and influence in the box.
Definitely. I mean, don't seem to see that much anyway nowadays for teams. I mean, when I first got introduced to football, it was with my uncle, and Man United. But you haven't had a presence like Schmeichel in the box for a long time. A lot of the people don't seem to do that anymore, screaming and shouting and yelling and geeing the players. And it's a shame, really, because, like Kendall said, last year we nearly had that with Dubravka, and he got such a brilliant connection that he didn't need to shout as much, maybe. I don't know. But, and another thing is, like you've said, he's been out a lot as well. So, you know, what was it? I think you're right. It's one cup game that they let him go out for. So he's rusty as well. So you've got to give him time to get back in the swing of things. We're all a bit rusty when we've had time off. But I'd like to hope that, you know, it will pick us and the connection will be there and you will see him managing from the line, because I think we don't get it from the manager's box. You don't see Bruce shouting instructions the way you see others do. So if Brad's not going to do it, then who is?
Yeah, fair enough.
You know? And maybe once he's not as rusty, once the cobweb's blown off, he'll be fine.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think you're right. The cobwebs blown off is a big thing, you know, having all that time out injured and then, as you say, sitting waiting on the bench. Holly, it was good to see him back, and I mean that save just, you know, sums him up. You know, he was in the right place at the right time.
Yeah, Martin Dubravka for me is an easy choice over Carl Darlow. I've been saying it for weeks. I've always loved Martin Dubravka since they signed. He made an instant impact when he came on loan in the 17-18 season. He makes mistakes now and then, like everybody, but it's very rare. And he's one of the only players that I rarely criticise when he does make a mistake, because the amount of times that he wins us a game or just saves us, because we could have been in relegation problems before without Martin Dubravka there. It's easily forgivable for me because he's just outstanding. I think he could easily get in any top 6, top 4 side. He could play in the Champions League. I rate him massively, honestly. And Carl Darlow, of course, I respect everything that he's done. I think he stepped up to the mark really well when he was called upon. And we can't be harsh on him because he did do a good job. But if it was Dubravka or Darlow, it would be Dubravka all day for me. And I think we'll lose Darlow at the end of the season if Dubravka comes back in at number 1, because realistically, I'd love to see him stay, but he's good enough to get first team football at another club. So he probably will go, but I'd wish the best of luck with him. I think he could do a great job in the Premier League, but we need to hold on to Dubravka.
Yeah, Sav, were you pleased to see him back?
Oh yeah, completely. I think, you know, like other people have said, with his sort of commanding lead that he holds at the back, we need that. I think it's a shame because actually Darlow hasn't been bad. Although I was on another show last week and I was looking at the statistics for the keepers, and I thought that Darlow would be right up there because I think it's because we watch them all the time, and he's made some astounding saves for us. He was like 11th in the Premier League statistically, which surprised me because I thought he'd be further up. I think it's a shame for him because he's too good to be sat on the bench. So, like Holly said, I think he'll leave in the summer. But Dubravka is just another league for me. He's got that leadership role. If you looked at the final whistle, he looked fuming with a draw. He didn't want to draw with us. And that's what we need. We need that sort of passion there and someone with a bit of drive and someone who is going to shout and, you know, motivate people, because we have seriously lacked that all season. We had a big spate of games where no one looked like they could be asked and they looked like just waiting to go home. So, yeah, I was really glad to see him back. I think we have missed that. Yeah, maybe arguably he could have saved that goal. But as Lily said, that's his first game all season. He's a little bit rusty and he'll come good again. He'll be the keeper that he was for us last season. And really, you know, I say better than Darlow. I just think it's that more leadership commanding role that he has that gives him the edge.
Yeah, I've just put that up on the screen. Dave Harrison put something in the chat, so I've just Googled it. And yeah, more bad PR for Newcastle incoming just at the wrong time. Tends to happen as well when we get relegated. Relegation seasons, we do seem to attract this kind of negative attention. I remember, the Joey Barton situation when, Shearer ended up taking us down. But yeah, Newcastle are facing several civil claims regarding the behaviour of former employee George Ormond, who in 2018, of course, received a 20-year jail sentence for multiple cases of sexual abuse. The club haven't taken responsibility for that. So we'll watch that story with interest. Not a positive one, that's for sure. Let's look ahead to the game at the weekend, and a lot of people in the chat asking who we would play, Kendall. What your starting lineup would be, but I guess the starting lineup picks itself to a degree. It's just who you're going to play up front, who's going to get you the goals to beat West Brom. So, what's your take on that game at the weekend?
Yeah, obviously we only have Crafts at right back, so he's going to have to play there. If you're playing four at the back again, Lascelles, Clark, unless Fernandez is back, and I would get Fernandez straight back in there for me. I would personally have Dummett over Lewis. If Dummett doesn't do a great job, just bring Lewis on. I mean, look, we know how he plays, so I would personally bring Dummett back in. Obviously start Ryan Fraser. Up front, I think the midfield's kind of picking itself at the moment. Shelby, Willock and Hayden. Fraser, Carroll, possibly. It depends who you go with, Fraser, Carroll or Gale. I don't even know if Mary's Murphy's going to start due, to the wing situation, or Joe Linton again. So I don't know what he's going to do. I really don't. That's the problem. We don't really have, because of the injuries, we don't have a solid front three if you're going to stick with the 4-3-3 or whatever it is. So, I personally would maybe go for Carroll. Maybe. I mean, he hasn't run out for a few games, and clearly Bruce isn't a fan of Gale, so don't see why Carroll can't play in there. I don't think he can probably play 90 minutes. Maybe bring Gale on midway through the second half. I think that's what we could have to do at the moment. It's absolute nightmare having to pick this team at the minute. Really, really bad.
No, it is. It definitely is. It's interesting to hear you play Carroll. I know that's the thing that's going to that's the thing that's really going to split the supporters, I think. Lily, I mean, who would you play? Tim Cairn says Carroll and Gale up top. Easy shout for them. Adam on the rant show came on before and said he would play Joe Linton. So, what's your take on that starting lineup at the weekend?
It is a tricky one, isn't it? Because with the injuries and stuff, why not give Carroll a run out? Because same as we've said, you can substitute him, or then do the way around. Gale go out for a little bit and then maybe let Carroll come on. It is a hard one, but I agree with Kendall. I think maybe not so much at the front, but why not let Dummett have a run out? And again, if he isn't doing what you want him to, then substitute him. He should be entitled to a run out because he can. I mean, Dom will say he's lost his legs, but why not give him a run out? But why not? I'd start Carroll. Maybe not the full 90, like Kendall said, but let him go. What can we lose? It is what it is. No, I'd start Carroll and leave Joe Linton on the bench for this week, I think.
Because I feel like Carroll offers more defensively as well. I mean, I know you're not expecting to defend against West Brom too much, but they have scored a decent amount of goals, and they do score goals, so he can offer something defensively if you're going to go back and sit deep if we haven't got those attacking options back. So I feel like Carroll is probably a good choice, but Gale, if you want to add an attacking option, Gale is probably a good thing to do against opposition like West Brom. I mean, throwing him in against Chelsea was bad because he was never going to score, he was never going to do much, and it's ended up looking bad for him that he didn't do anything, but you can't expect that. So I don't know what he's going to do. He always does the wrong thing anyway usually, so it's just
I knew it would split the fans, Holly. David Reid, I'd go Gale, Fraser, Murphy and Joe. Adam Telford, Carroll shouldn't start. It's one of those things. It really is going to split supporters, and it's no surprise. I mean, Carroll for me, as everybody knows, I'm not a big fan. However, when he's come on as a sub, last 15 minutes of recent games, he's put more effort in than some of the players, who've played, the 65, 70 minutes beforehand. But it's just a disgrace, Holly, that we're in this position. We're scratching around at the business end of the season, and we haven't got anybody to put the ball in the back of the net because we're key strikers injured.
This is the thing, in the game against Wolves, if Wilson had been playing then, I think we would have won, and I don't think we would have even had to worry about winning. it's just worrying that we're relying that much on Wilson, because he's literally the person that was scoring practically all of the goals, and we haven't got anyone else. That's what I think we should have prioritised in the January window, bringing in a second striker on the bench that can score goals, because you can't rely on one. Because like, look what's happened now. We're in a relegation battle, and Wilson's injured, and now we don't know where the goals are going to come from. And the options on the bench, Joelinton, Carroll, and Gale, none of them are good enough. Gale, I don't hate him, but I don't love him. He's okay in the Championship. I don't think he's good enough at this level. Carroll can't really play a full 90. And then Joelinton's probably not an out-and-out striker. But I would go with Carroll for this game, just because I agree with what you said. I think he puts in more effort than anyone else. I think the fact that he's local, he's one of the only most passionate players in the team, and he'll do anything he can to help us out. And I think that's the type of game he could do well in, with West Brom being one of the more struggling sides. I think that's when Carroll will do his best against those sides, rather than the likes of Liverpool and Man City, who have all these fantastic world-class players and tactics and stuff like that. But I think Carroll would be a good shout, even if we played him the first half and then brought someone else on after. But why not give him a go, I say.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's tough. Yano, he says Gale's down tools, 8 touches in 40 minutes last appearance. Adam says Gale should start in front of Carroll. Brandon says if playing Carroll, we need to play players that can give him service. Thinking about the likes of Richie, maybe Murphy, Fraser, otherwise bring him in later. Colin, I agree. He says this is going to be a scrap on Sunday. We need scrappers. Carroll up front with Gale, hopefully feeding off the scraps. Paul Gibson says made a broken glass. Dummett, which, just talking a little bit about that. But up front, we've got to get it right. We need goals. And it's not going to be a game for the purists at the weekend. I'm not a fan of Carroll. I do believe as well, you're right, that Gale's down tools, but that's who I would play. I'd probably go for those two, but they would have to have the good supply line. You'd have to play Fraser. You'd have to play Richie. You need a bit of creativity. You need to put these arguments that have gone on in the dressing room to bed, and you need to decide, who you're going to play in midfield, and got to hope, I suppose, Sav, that we get the best out of Shelvey. Shelvey, 1 in 10 he plays, and I think we got the one out of him at the weekend. I thought he was okay at the weekend. Which John Joe Shelvey turns next week depends on who you play in midfield. It's a bloody mess, man. Who would you play up front?
Well, this is the thing with me, and it's like saying that Gale's down tools. That's how I've felt the last few times I've seen him play. I've not even really noticed him on the pitch, and that's the problem. I don't know if it's a problem because we can't get the service into the area, which is where he is there and about, or it's just that he can't be bothered anymore. And that would be the only reason why I would start Carroll in front of him, because I think that he is quite, you always notice him on the pitch when he's there. But it's a shame, because towards the end of last season, Gale actually hit quite a bit of a run of form and was banging in a few goals, but we haven't seen that this season. I know he had that big injury, but he never seems to have sort of come back since then. So yeah, I'd probably try Murphy. I actually don't think he's that bad, to be fair. I don't think he's played enough, but he's quite pacey, and he can get forward. So I don't know why we don't use him more, to be honest. I often thought that when he came on at the weekend, I was actually quite happy to see him, because I think he needs more game time at the moment. So yeah, that would be the only reason I'd start Carroll over Gale. If it was Gale towards the end of last season, I'd have started him over Carroll. It's just so difficult. As you say, it's a complete mess.
Yeah, it is a complete mess. Okay, then let's go for your predictions. Kendall, what's your prediction for Newcastle against West Brom?
I just think it's going to be a scrappy 1-0. I'll go 1-0 Newcastle.
Scrappy 1-0. Would take that all day. Lily?
Yeah, I agree with Kendall. Scrappy 1-0 towards, yeah.
Okay, Holly?
I'm going to be positive this week. I'm going to predict the first win for a long time, and I'm going to say 2-0.
2-0, all right. And Sav?
You know what? I could see it being a typical Newcastle 1-1, but I'm not going to say that because I'm going to be positive, so I'm going to go for a 1-0 as well.
Well, that's very positive. It was a bit of a downer show today, but we all got there in the end. I think everyone's smiling. Thanks to everybody in the comments. Some great stuff coming in from everybody out there. I'm back tomorrow night, 6 o'clock until 7, with Liam Kennedy, when I'm sure the takeover will probably rear its head again. So look forward to seeing you then. A lot of people talking about Glen Roeder. I did mention it slightly earlier, but we are going to do a tribute show to Glen on Wednesday night. Normally the retro show, we look back at games between Newcastle United and other teams. We were supposed to be doing Crystal Palace this week, but we are going to focus on the life and time of Glen Roeder. Going to look back at Glen's wonderful career at Newcastle and the team that he played in, and then talk a little bit about his time as Newcastle United manager as well. Our stories, our reflections on Glen Roeder. So look forward to working with the retro team on that on Wednesday night. But girls, as always, absolute pleasure speaking to you about Newcastle. Look forward to seeing you again next week. Have a good week. Take care, girls. Bye.
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 Head back with the critics' attack. It feels like I've been talking to myself again. But it's the only way you're ever gonna learn. You look back and it's all in the past.